7 Sports.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jason. Hope you're doing well. I think around January, Mel had made a comment. I'm sure you saw it. It was like, I want this to be the toughest, most grueling, relentless, scary, whatever program. Has it been that, and why, you think?
I do remember Coach saying that, and I think I've answered that question for other folks too, and my answer to it really was like, that was not the intention of what we're doing or anything like that. We're trying to do what our players need and what's appropriate for them at this time of year. And if it ends up being that it's just that's just the way we do things. That's the way it's going to be. And some guys might tell you, yeah, it's very hard. It's very difficult, challenging. And for them it is, and other guys, at different levels of their career, maybe it's not quite that, but what we've tried to do is push them appropriately and expand their tolerance for training. Because it's honestly, this is the first time my staff and I have been able to train them in any semblance of normalcy since we've been here. So we're just excited to be able to do it kind of like what we're used to doing for once,
That kind of leads me to a quick follow-up, if I could. When you had last year was completely abnormal, and so you have a team that has gone sort of a full year without a real program. Does that affect how you tailored this thing in terms of, I don't know if you can even do makeup, ground, I guess, from this year, but did that affect things at all, the planning?
It does, in the sense that, based off when we got here, last at the end of February, the training progressions and the exercises and the way you would teach guys to grow from exercise A to exercise Z, we didn't have that time to progress. So we started that in June, and then it was divided because of COVID and how we had to do pods and whatnot. So where we would be now, had we been training this way since last year from now, the progressions aren't quite there yet because we're starting now. And so it's probably not as advanced a training as what we'll do a year from now, because as the guys adapt to it and get more comfortable, it gets more challenging. The biggest thing in the weight room for us is we want to chase weights and train hard, but we have to challenge their athleticism in the weight room, or it doesn't it doesn't show up on the field for them. So we got to challenge them as athletes, and how that comes, it becomes more complex with what you ask them to do in here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Our next question is from Matt Wenzel with M Live.
Hey, Jason, I understand that the 8-week program split into 2 phases. The first one was just the strength staff. The second, where the assistant coaches and the coaching staff get involved. I guess, can you kind of describe the differences between those two and what changes?
Yes, sir. So the first 4 weeks of it was just with the strength and conditioning staff. We went 4 days a week, and basically it was the preparatory phase of, one, knocking the rust off of the guys from being away for, say, the holiday break. And so easing them into getting used to the type of training that we're going to get into, which is this next 4-week phase. And then the coaches get involved. We do the stations around the field like everybody does and things like that. There's also some more football specific activity that comes in this next phase here, where they can actually do football without a ball, but it's very much more position specific. And then that will kind of bleed into the start of spring football. So you kind of just start with build that base. If you thought about a pyramid, we're just building the base, and then we work our way towards it. And then when spring ball hits, then we're kind of working at the tip of the pyramid there. And then we'll take a little time off and then start the whole process back over in the summer. So the big 2 distinctions are the amount of specific football activities. The first 4 weeks, there's none. It's just general fitness, strength, and conditioning. And then it gets a little more specific as we go.
And when the back in the summer, when the Big Ten initially postponed the season, I think you guys had set out to do 6 weeks, and I think you got about 5. I guess, where did that play in that, talk about creating a base and moving on, where did that 5-week period play into maybe what you could pick up on now? Sure.
So when we started camp, and then they shut down the season and we went back to the off season mode, we basically treated that time period. We said, this is January for us. And so we went back and started like it was day one for us. And so with doing that, the unique deal with it though, was we were still spread out, not in big groups. And so it kind of, there were challenges with access to equipment and facilities and things like that. Where we started now is we can have larger groups and we can spread it out and make it more position specific. So like our groups, defensive skills and middle guys is a group, our linemen is a group, and then our offensive skills and middle guys are a group. So it can be tailored to those three groups, that the workout's the same intent, but there might be some smaller differences based on who's in the room at the time. Whereas back, last in August or in September, we weren't able to do that. It was a little more one size fits all just because of protocols.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Our next question is from Chris Solar, the Detroit Free Press.
Hey, Jason, I guess, kind of in hindsight, where was this program from a strength and conditioning standpoint when you took it over? Do you feel like the players were where you thought they would be or should be for a Power 5 school, and where do you think they are at this point?
I do. It's funny. When I got here, I arrived the last day of their winter conditioning, of their phase 2, what we're in right now. I arrived the last day. So they were kind of at the peak of off season at that point. Then they took a week off for spring break. And that's when we were going to get rolling with spring ball. And then everything got shut down. So, when we got here, they were strong. They had been training for 8 weeks and they were ready to roll. And then it became, just kind of learning the nuances and the different ways that we train and maybe some of the different exercises or whatnot. But they were ready to go. There was no doubt about that. And I got to watch their last workout before they went away for break, and watching the stations and everything. To your point now, at this time of year, basically what we're doing and what we're chasing now is teaching them the intent that we're supposed to lift with in here. And football is a sudden sport. It happens now. And so that's what we're trying to develop in the weight room now is, when you decide to drive the bar or pick something up or power clean or snatch or jump, it has to be sudden, and the intent behind it has to be explosive. And so that's been the focus of this past about 5.5 weeks, of the intent that we're lifting with and that we're training with and on the field when we run as well. Just a little more sudden, you're never going to have enough. We're always going to chase that. 10 years from now, I'll still be telling you that.
In hindsight, that maybe first 3 months or 2 months between when everything shut down and when you guys resumed, just kind of going back over that. How were you able to kind of keep these guys focused, and what things did you see from the creative standpoint? Because I know a lot of those guys were having to kind of improvise on the fly.
Yes. Yeah. You had some incredible garage workouts and barn workouts and milk jugs filled with water and you name it. To be honest with you, the biggest part was the unique thing was I didn't know any of the players at that time. And other than going through the media guide, they did not know me. We had just hired our staff. That was our first time together. And we really leaned on each other and my staff of like, hey, listen, we're going to have to do this in a way that none of us are comfortable with. So we have to abandon what we know and make sure we find ways that the guys are comfortable with and things that they can actually execute and do. And so that's where it became, if all you ever had was a hammer, everything became a nail, right? And so what things do they have access to, and what can we support them with by keeping them moving and active? Because as we all know too, part of it, everybody was scared. Nobody knew what was going on. We didn't know the depths of this or how long it was going to go. And so part of it, exercise plays a huge role in mental health. And so for us to if we could be some sense of normalcy for them and just communicate, sending them workout videos and things like that, and just say, hey, listen, these are some things that you can do to keep you going. And when it breaks, we're going to be okay. And we'll get back together and we'll do it the normal way. And that's what we tried to do through, YouTube channels and videotaping workouts and you name it, we tried it. And let the guys send us their workouts and see what they're coming up with. And it was amazing what some of them came up, pushing cars in the snow. It was awesome.
Our next question goes to Matt Charbonneau, the Detroit News.
I'm just wondering, does it feel like, considering everything that you guys have had to adapt to and go through, does it feel like now is almost like you're now finally getting that first, like you guys just came in, you're getting that now's the first season, really? I guess?
It is. It's funny. I was talking with Coach Tucker last week. We had our first stations workout out on the field, And as we started the stations, I walked by him. I said, Coach, I said, it's amazing. It only took us a year to get the first one done. You know, and it really is that, because it's almost a year to the day, right? And so, yeah, it does feel like you're starting over, because we'd never gone through an off-season program with our team. They'd never gone through it either. So it was going to be different. The points of emphasis were going to change. And so there was still a lot of learning in January for how we were going to do this, and, you know, the expectations and the intensities of it. And so, yeah, we're still learning and getting it going.
Was there anything in when people were doing different workouts, and I'm not saying pushing a car or anything like that, but is there anything through all this that you picked up that you thought, hey, maybe this is something we can implement? Again, not something crazy like that, but was there just different things that maybe you'll learn through this that you might, you know, may adjust the way you do things now? Or is it just kind of getting through it, you know?
Yeah, you know, to me, like the biggest ones, you know, a lot of our guys were creative with body weight activities and things like that. A lot of it obviously is not usable for us in a giant team setting. But to me, it was more so a demonstration by the players here of how important this is to them. That they're finding a way to get things done. They're being creative and they're not shutting it down. And they were trying to keep themselves in shape mentally and physically and otherwise. And it shows me, I was like, dude, these guys, because again, I didn't know them. I was like, these guys, this is important to them. Like, I couldn't wait to get back with them, because I was like, look at what they're doing. I was like, this means something. And so to me, that was what it was more about, because nobody was going to come back in shape from that break that we had to take. Nobody was going to be ready. But to me, it was like, look what you're working with. I mean, these guys get it, and it's important.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Our next question will go to Lindsey Huddleston.
Hey, Coach, I know players come with different experiences from their high school when they transition to college, but what's been one of the biggest transition issues you see universally with players who are leaving being standout high school players, but coming to the collegiate level, particularly in the Big Ten and at Michigan State?
Man, that's an awesome question. So this is what I tell all of the incoming freshmen and during recruiting and things like it. The greatest thing you can do for yourself to give you a chance to play is be in shape when you get here. Because everybody, the weight room's the easy part, because we're all going to bench and we're going to squat and we're going to lift and all the mirror muscles, right? But the thing that gets neglected is the conditioning side. And the way I tell them it is this: I'm like, look, when you get here, if coach is willing to give you 5 plays to show what you're about, and at 3, you're tapping out because you're tired, those 2 plays don't go away. They go to somebody else. So you got to be able to take the reps that they're willing to give you when you get here, because the weight room's going to take care of itself. You're going to mature. You're going to get bigger and stronger just by naturally maturing and aging. But you got to be in shape when you get here to take those reps they're willing to give you, because everybody wants to play early, and you got to be ready to go when your number's called. Every rep you're willing to give, I'm ready to take. And because they don't go away. There's no such thing as a lost opportunity or a missed opportunity. It just goes to somebody else. So why wouldn't you be ready to take it? So that's always been my admonition to guys is, man, come in shape, because we're going to treat you like you've not been in a weight room anyway when you get here, to make sure that things are done safely, technically sound, and that you're good to go on our end in the room. But the conditioning part, you got complete control over that when you show up.
Great, I appreciate that. Quick follow-up. Let's play it out. And said player did tap out, and now he's at that point where he's feeling low, he's feeling down, he's not getting the support from home because of he was the man he's not. How do you walk him through that process of getting him back in the position to get those new opportunities?
Sure. The one thing I would say about that is nobody will be on an island by themselves with that. You're never going to be alone, because it happens more times than not. The biggest thing is, when you come in as a freshman, you've been competing against 17, 16, and 15-year-olds. Now you're competing against 20, 21, and 22-year-olds. So that's a big jump, right? That's a big change. And so the really big thing is, we always joke with our players, but I always ask them, like, how do you eat an elephant? And they have no idea. And I'm like, 1 bite at a time, right? And so you don't have to worry about the whole camp, or you don't have to worry about the first. You just got to win today, or you got to win that drill. But the most important thing now is you got to get your tape cut off and go win lunch. Just do that. And then when you win lunch, now you got to be ready and win the meeting. and then we'll win the walkthrough. If you take it one thing at a time and just focus it, it's not so overwhelming. Because I mean, honest, right? They're away from home. They don't know the names of the streets. They don't know the names of the buildings, and they can't find the calf. And it's overwhelming. Just win one thing, and then you look back and you're like, all right, I got a plan, I got a system, and you walk them through it and understand that, man, it's scary and it's intimidating. So what can we win that you can control? And then we'll just stack those wins on top of each other. By the time we get to the camp and the end of the camping season, we're ready to roll, and you have comfort. And then we're good. Then you can show what you're about and the reason you're here, because you're special for being here. We just got to
Right.
help them figure out and get confident with it, you know?
Right. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go to Jim Comparoni with Spartan Magazine.
Hey, Jason, I've got a question about the elite form system.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that, football's a sudden sport and you want to challenge them as athletes in quickness and reaction time. Could you expand a little bit on why elite form assists with that, and how many other programs are using it? How did IMG find out about it?
Yes.
How widespread is it and how important is it?
Yes, sir. Elite form is becoming much more widespread. When I was with the Titans, they were just getting started, and we had a unit down there, and we were able to demonstrate it and use it with our players down there. Obviously, when I got to IMG, the entire weight room was outfitted with it. And so, the basis of it is this. It trains the intent with which you lift, right? So we can all eyeball a guy, squat or power clean or something like that. And 2 reps back to back can look the exact same to us, but there could be significant differences in the peak speed or the average speed or the power output of those 2 reps. And so with us, our guys in this sport, everything they learn about their sport is how they watch themselves on film. Everything is visual, but in the weight room, the only thing visual is a mirror. And so this is instant feedback for them to say, holy smokes, both reps felt the same, but one was significantly different. So it's feedback to show them starting strength, the suddenness, and the intent with which you lift. Now, with that becomes the competition component. So if I am training 5 racks down from somebody else, and one of my teammates, if he hits a number that's the best in the room, everything's going to light up gold, and his name's now on every screen of, hey, this is the guy to chase in the room. He's the top dog, right? And so now everybody knows, man, there's somebody we're chasing because the record was just set, and that's the peak of the day. And so it creates competition in the room, and it takes something that otherwise you don't keep score on, other than adding, pounds on the bar. And now we can keep score and create competition. But it's feedback for the guys of showing them, hey, look, this is where you started in January output wise. This is where you are in February and March, and then June, July, and August. And then show them the gains that they've made throughout the course of time by the intent that they're training. And that should translate better crossing the threshold of the door, because it makes them more sudden.
When they are doing a set and they see the feedback and they can see that the numbers weren't as good as they should have been, can they look back at what they did technique wise and change it? Or sometimes they have trouble finding that?
No, sir. So it's instant feedback. They can hit a button, and it's a video feedback, so they can watch that set and they can see themselves do it. So if there's a technical flaw or something like that, we can show that to them through the video component of it. A lot of times we video them on our phones as well, so we can show it right to them from a side angle. But there's a lot of feedback as far as technical goes. And then the flip side of that is it goes back all the way that they can chart those exercises and know this exercise at this weight in January, this is what I put out there. But now in March, same weight, same exercise, this is what I'm putting. So they can chart that progress and see the mountain they're climbing.
One other thing, you had a lot of mid-year freshmen come in January and some portal guys. How fun or challenging is it to get those guys integrated into it? What is that process like when you've got a lot of other guys that are thick into it? How has that gone so far?
Yes, sir. That's been really, really good as far as, this is probably the best situation they could be, because they're learning all of this for the most part, just like the regular guys that were here last year too, because I said we're really kind of still starting and teaching a lot. So that was a good, assimilation for them into the program. The biggest thing is, anytime somebody comes in that's new, we treat them like they've not been in a weight room. And there's a few assessments that we do and things to make sure we watch them, because ultimately the grip it and rip it mentality, you can get away with that a little bit, but eventually you're going to pay that debt back. So we want to make sure that they're set up safely to do what we want to do, and that they have the ranges of motion and things, that they understand what they're being asked to do. Then we can add speeds and loads on top of it, but they got to be safe, because eventually we're going to plateau, or God forbid, get somebody hurt doing it because they're doing something that's not safe. And that's the thing, that's that eating that elephant. Everybody's in a hurry, but you have time to build it the right way, to not have to take those steps back down a month or two down the road because something went wrong. We go a little slower and we'll get where we need to be without those step backs.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next question will go to Audrey Dalgan with WLNS.
Hi, Jason. Yeah, the Elite Forum is very interesting, intriguing to learn about the metrics and the analytics. But my question is a little bit more simple, I guess, in a sense of what are you guys, I mean, what's the base for this training program, in a sense of like, at the end of it, it would make it successful if this, or this is what we want our guys or need our guys to be at a weight size, or lifting a certain, I mean, what makes it successful at the end of the training program?
Sure. You know, ultimately, it's the effort and the intensity that we train with. That's ultimately it, because, you know, any exercise is a good exercise if done with intent and done, you know, with effort. And so basically, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, power cleans and squats and bench and things like that. But really what we're trying to do, everything that you see, like hashtag, right? Hashtag relentless. Well, that word, if you're really doing that and being that, there's a certain standard that you have to meet every day of the way you train, the way you recover, the way you take care of your body, that's really it. It's really establishing and creating behaviors that then it doesn't matter what exercise you're doing, because there's a way that we do whatever we do. And that's really what and this is the first time we've been able to work on establishing that. And with that becomes, you know, the nutrition and recovery. You know, you guys, we had talked about the nutrition that we've implemented, and getting to hire Amber as our nutritionist and the rock star that she is, and the changes she's made in such a short time. That's what we're trying to do, is like, guys, invest in yourself, take advantage of every single opportunity there is in the building to gain ground and get everything out of this that you can. And then whatever the exercises are, or the drill that we're doing is, who cares? Just pin your ears back and go, and then we'll get where we need to get. That's kind of our mentality, more so than designing the absolute perfect workout. The perfect workout done half-heartedly means nothing. Let's fill milk jugs and push cars, but man, let's be the best at it, and we'll probably get more out of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then as a quick follow-up, how fired up are you for the donation that Matt Ishbia has given to the football program, in terms of what you're going to be able to do with what he's contributing?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, like, you know, I've never been a part of something like that, where a generosity of that magnitude that I've been able to be a part of. So number one, holy smokes, right? Number two, that is a program changing opportunity, but not just for the guys that are wearing green and white today. That's going to affect 3, 5, 10 years from now. That's program changing of what that allows us to do. And, you know, Selfish Strength Coach talking part of it. I mean, the doors that opens, and the possibilities that creates for us and training our players. I mean, it's just an amazing opportunity. And it just speaks to the level that Michigan State is, and how people feel about this, and how easy it is to get excited about this and Spartan Nation, right? Because, I mean, not everywhere gets that, and it's certainly not done everywhere. And so very appreciative, very thankful for that. And I mean, it's amazing what that's going to do for our players, and players that don't even know they're Spartans yet, that are going to be 3, 5, 7 years down the road. It's going to be incredible.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Looks like we have time just for a couple more. Stephen, did you still have another question? Stephen Brooks?
Sure. Yeah, Jason, I've heard from quite a few recruits about your impact in that process, and when they get to the opportunity to talk to you. I'm just curious, you know, what do you see your role in the recruiting process, and how do you think that's going? Have you done that a lot in your previous stops? I was looking, obviously the NFL, no, and IMG, no. I don't know at Central, maybe, if you were too involved in that. Just, again, your role and how you think that's all going in terms of how you
Sure.
help the program in that regard.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think, you know, recruiting, it's true. It's the lifeblood of the program, right? So it's very critical. On the other side of that is, you know, these guys, they spend more time with me and my staff and in our room than they really do anywhere other than the library, right? So those are the two highest trafficked areas on campus for an athlete. And so what I do is I try to lay out when I talk to recruits, who I am and sell like crazy how good of a staff I have. Because I get to be the face in front of them and talk to them a little bit on Zoom, but I try to help them get to know our staff, the strengths, their backgrounds and experience, to know, hey, look, you have a team of people here that is chomping at the bit when you get here, that we're all in on you to help get you where you want to go. And so the ultimate thing that we talk about is, I always tell the guys, I'm like, listen, I do not control your playing time. I don't do that. But if you have it, I'll help you keep it. And if you want it, I'll help you get it. If we can have a relationship like that, then everything that we ask you to do is for your benefit. And if we can help you, if the faster we can help you understand that, know it, and believe it, then it's all gas, no brakes, pin our ears back and we go. And so that's really the gist of how I talk with them, and making sure that they understand, like, look, we're going to treat you like an athlete and take your athleticism to build that as a better football player, not treat you just like a football player at the detriment of all other athletic needs, because that's a dangerous way to make a living as an athlete, because it's very volatile and bad things happen when you do that, because it's very unbalanced.
Is this kind of a new hat for you, doing this to this level, or is this something you've done a little bit throughout?
At Central Michigan, I did it quite a bit. At other colleges that I've been at, there was various degrees of involvement with recruiting. As recruiting has grown, it obviously gets a lot more. The NFL was different because you had to recruit with free agency. And so when you would bring the free agents in, it was just like freshman high school visits, but they were free agents. And it was different what you were selling, because it was a second contract, or they were at the end of their careers, and you had to sell, how could you help them gain time in the league? What did you have to offer them? And then how could you mitigate injuries, rehabilitations, and things like that? So I'm comfortable with it, because I talk to them like I would want coaches talking to my kids. And so I want to make sure that I get across to the parents, this is important to me as a dad, and this is what I would want to know. I might be a little bit more educated on what to ask sometimes because I'm in the business, but I want to make sure y'all know this is what I would want to know. And hopefully there builds a comfort level with that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, one more from Jim, if we have time for it.
Hey, Jason, last year, the team got on the field in August, and there was a shutdown. And then in September and October, you had the January type of workouts like you're talking about. Did you notice some progress in the players from the time that they were on the field? Did they make progress between that September, October period? Was that tangible? Was it noticeable? And if so, how encouraged are you that now during this 9-month program or whatever it is, that you'll see even more progress? Did you see some progress then? What's your optimism going into the fall?
Yes, sir. So going back to the August, September, there were some noticeable changes. We had a lot of changes with body composition. Around on average, in that about 8-week time from the middle of August camp until we got back in October, around average, we were about a 3 to 3.5% change in body fat percentage over that time. But we were able to really dig into the conditioning side of things. Whereas back in the summer, when we knew camp was started, everything was very accelerated. So we had to be able to train to run for football. And so it was a little bit more tip of the spear training. Whereas when we stopped the camp and went back to that January model, we were able to attack conditioning and fitness a little bit harder. So you saw changes in body compositions a little bit more that way than would be normal for that time of year. Then the second part is with the training in the weight room, the biggest changes were honestly the adaptation of being able to get back to training like with normal implements, because in the summer we were in the indoor field at the weave. We had a group in the weight room and then out on the field and all that. We were able to train a little bit normal. So the numbers looked a little bit more normal to what we're all used to seeing in the weight room, and being able to do the traditional exercises. That way for now, pretty much we're able to train normal. We can do all the normal things. It's the traditional strength and conditioning, but we can start in January, the conditioning base, build it up, add speed on top of it, and then change direction for spring ball and repeat the process over in the summer. So I'm really excited. The guys have worked very, very hard. They've been very intense with the efforts they've given. And I think we're going to get some good results as far as, body changes and strength gains and whatnot. But, the biggest, I think, impact is the nutrition. Honestly, like that affects our players more than any exercise I write on a page, on a piece of paper, because it affects everything that they do. And that's how you really if you want to change your body in production or body comp or whatnot, nutrition is where it's going to have the biggest bang for your buck.
You may not want to answer this, but are there 2 or 3 players or maybe a position group that have changed their body and composition and suddenness the most since entering this program?
Yeah, I would say a position group as a whole that has really done some good work and put in some really good some good time in the room. The wide receivers have done really good. And so what we've been working on them a lot with is that first step and the top end speed. So the football's a game of separation, right? You're either trying to create it or close it. And so what we're trying to do is work on the first step. And then once we get past that, the top end speed of it. So they've done some really good work. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I'm seeing a bunch of guys in there doing extra work today on an off day. They're all out there throwing now. And so that would be a group that's done a really, really good job. I could single out guys from every single position that have really, really changed as far as the intensity with which they go about this. And the list is really, really long. The list would be shorter if I started saying who doesn't do that. And so for me, I'm just really appreciative of the effort they've given and how dialed in they've been. And I'm excited to see what they've done. I'm fans of theirs first. Like ultimately, I enjoy watching them. I love watching them, and I'm fans of theirs. And I like to see their successes because I don't control their playing time.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach, we really appreciate you joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you soon at spring ball.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
All right, now joined by Director of Player Engagement, Darien Harris. I've gotten a lot of questions on a lot of the things the players have been doing in the off season. They're not only in the weight room working out, but they've been doing a lot of stuff with Darien. He's here to talk about that here today. If you have any questions, feel free to enter in the chat. But, Darien, I don't know if you just want to get started a little bit while we wait for some questions, but just some of the priorities that you have taken on since the season has ended, and some of the things that you're really trying to get across these guys.
For sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about what we're doing off the field, which is, as I think everyone knows, just as important, if not more important, than what these guys do on the field. Obviously, last year was an interesting circumstance, especially for player development for myself, because with COVID, with the civil unrest that transpired after the murder of George Floyd, with everything that was going on in the country, we had to shift our focus from what I would say we normally do player development wise, whether it's career networking, financial literacy, things like that, to voting rights and registration, education on being social justice warriors, teaching our players how to speak out and things of that nature. So what I'm really looking forward to this year is kind of getting back to what I would say is regularly scheduled programming. Even though all those things are incredibly important, we're going to still continue to focus on those things. Just getting back to what we want our players to be, just to have opportunity to experience, so that they're ready to transition whenever their playing career is done. So I guess I give you the first few months since we're on month 3 of 2021 of what we've really been focusing on, and then I guess give you a little bit of an overarching look at what we're doing for the rest of the year. But January was the focus on onboarding of our transfer players coming in and our early enrollees, freshmen. I can say that all 10 of those young men have done an exceptional job since their first day on campus. They've been incredibly attentive and really embrace what we do here at Michigan State. And they've been a tremendous asset to our locker room. And they've had a tremendous impact on our players. I really pay a lot of attention to how our players interact. And especially when you're bringing in not just freshmen, but transfers from different places, different locations, to see how they ingratiate themselves into what we do and who we are as Spartan Dogs. They've done a great job of doing that. Got to give a lot of credit to our former players for helping with that. We were able to create what's called a Spartan Dog playbook to give to all our new players, so whether that's new freshmen when they come in or transfers coming in, and it just outlines what it means to be a Spartan Dog. We also had players last year, about 50 or so former players sending videos of what it means to them to be a Spartan Dog, and we're able to show that to our team and to our new players. We will not be releasing that probably. That's something for in-house, but it does a great job of outlining what it is to be a Spartan Dog, since that's really, really important to our culture. And within this playbook, we have about 15 characteristics, 15 traits that really outline what being a Spartan Dog is. I took traits that were overlapping from these videos and put it in this playbook. We also have pages that focus on the championship teams that from here, whether it's national championship teams or Big Ten title teams. So just so our guys that are new know the history of Michigan State football. So they get that on day one, go through that, watch the video, and they get a sense of what it means to be a Spartan Dog. So that's really what January is about. It's all about onboarding. And as we continue to do throughout the year, as we've done since I was playing here, since I was a freshman here, meeting with the freshmen every single week, myself and Coach Lorenzo Guest, and keeping it real is something that's really big and important to us. Moving on to February, we really wanted to focus, as the entire athletic department did, on Black History Month. Again, we wanted to continue the education that we really started to hit extremely hard last year based on what was going on in the country. And with our Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Ashley Baker, coming in, collaborating with her on what she thought that we should highlight, we both agreed that it would be really important to highlight Michigan State's Black history specifically. So if you all saw on social media, whether it's from the football page, the overtime program Twitter page, or the rest of athletics, the DLC, all those pages, it was a lot of focus on Michigan State's history. It's dating back to the 1966-67 national championship teams that integrated college football, and all the way up through where we are today. We were fortunate enough to be joined by Gene Washington and Clinton Jones in February. They spent over an hour on Zoom with our entire team, telling their story and allowing our players to ask questions, and just to have them too, as well as Jimmy Ray and others from that time as a resource to our team is incredibly important. We also ended February with our partnership with the entrepreneurship program here, the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. That's something that I think is going to take our program on and off the field and this entire athletic department to the next level. Kind of how that came about was that program has been in place in Michigan State for the past, I believe, 6 years. But as an athletic department in the football program, we never tapped into it for whatever reason. There's a gentleman by the name of Curtis Daniel who played here at Michigan State. He played in, I think his last year was 1990. He was a DB here, actually never played it down here, had a neck injury that ended his career, but that allowed him to explore things outside of football. And he now is the owner of Patchwork Recording Studios down in Atlanta, Georgia. Any artist that you can think of in the hip hop and R&B world has been through his studio and recorded at his studio. He's also a resident with the entrepreneurship program here. He contacted Coach Tucker, myself, Elliot Daniels, and Lorenzo Guest about this program and said, we got to do something with them. That was on February 3rd, or February 1st, actually. By February 2nd, I'd already set up a meeting with 3 of the faculty members with the Burgess Institute. By the next week, myself and Coach Tucker, along with Alan Haller and Elliot Daniels, went and toured the Hatch, which is the incubator here on campus for entrepreneurship. And we had our creative team go over and shoot the video of that. And by last Wednesday, the 24th, I believe, we announced a partnership. That partnership has allowed us to first launch what's called an entrepreneurship training camp, which is a 6-week seminar between our players and entrepreneurship program here on campus, 7:30 p.m. every Wednesday for the next 6 weeks, started last week, where it's going to teach our players what's called an entrepreneurship mindset. So week 1 is life after sports, problem solving in the world. Week 2 is a formation of teams, ideations, entrepreneurship mindset. Week 3 is value proposition, coming up with ideas. Week 4 is business models. Week 5 is resilience, risk-taking, storytelling. And week 6 is we're going to actually have these teams. We broke the guys up into groups of 5. They're actually going to pitch an idea, and we're going to crown an entrepreneurship quote-unquote champion. We had 52 players on it last week. Coach Tucker made it optional, but highly recommended. And to have 52 players sign up to do something like that on a Wednesday night as a student athlete is exceptional. We've never had any type of buy-in like that before in anything that we've done. We've already had a lot of players reach out to the entrepreneurship program directly with ideas they have. We're also going to take players in groups over to the Hatch so they can tour the Hatch, which is, again, on Grand River And you can take any business idea you have in any regard, go over there, and they will walk you through the process all the way up from idea to launching that business. It's essentially free of charge for any student on campus. They through their grants and their funding handle the initial marketing, graphic design, business model, business plan, all those types of things, and teach you how to do that. So for us to be able to tap into this program as a football program and an athletic department is huge. The one thing we also did last week was we had a Spartan Dogs meeting that I put together. We had 120 former players on that meeting, all the way from guys that played in the 60s, with Clinton Jones was on there and a couple of his teammates, all the way up to guys that got done playing last year. Guys that are in the NFL were on that call, guys that are doing things in business, and everywhere in between, guys that are recently graduated and looking for opportunities, and guys that have been established in their field of work for a long time. So it was 120 players. We were joined by Athletic Director Beekman. He gave an initial statement. We were joined by Deputy Athletic Director Alan Haller, who of course is a Spartan Dog as well. I was the moderator for the call. Had Coach Lorenzo Guest talk about strength and conditioning, and then Coach Tucker ended the call for about 20 minutes, and we opened it up to questions. The main reason we wanted to do that is because I wanted to introduce what's being called the Iron Sharpens Iron Initiative, which is going to be a career networking program between former players and our current players. So it's going to be our own kind of version of LinkedIn. We're doing it through Game Plan, which is our educational platform that we send players weekly courses on, and they also have a mentorship program, mentorship platform within the website, within the app, that we can customize to ourselves. So I took that and said, how would it look if we took every single former player that ever played here and housed their career data and career information on it, so we know where they work, what they're doing career-wise, where they're located at, what they majored in, what their interests are, and what their specialty is, and house that under one roof and one database. Within that database is also our current players. So our current players can see where our former players are and where they work, and what they're doing career-wise. Our former players can also network with each other. And then I can also toggle certain former players to serve as mentors for our current players, which will launch our mentor program. So again, it's called the Iron Sharpens Iron Initiative. I was able to show our former players on that call the sign up page, which is all put together. Game Plan works incredibly fast with that. And I would say in the next few weeks, we're going to be launching that, which I'm really excited about. Coach Tucker is huge on mentorship and making sure that our former players are, of course, ingratiated within the program, but also mentoring our current players. So we're going to have a lot of success, I think, with that. It's going to be a real huge benefit for us for now and for years to come, because we're just going to continue to add to that database. Other than that, I think that's kind of what the last few months have been. It's been incredibly busy, but incredibly fortunate to get the opportunity to implement a lot of these things. We ended Black History Month with my sit-down interview with Coach Tucker, talking about being a Black head coach. There's only 8 in Power 5. There's only 13 in FBS. There's only 3 Black head coaches in the NFL. So we really wanted to, again, highlight our own, but also give Coach Tucker an opportunity and a platform to speak on that. You see in the NFL, Mike Tomlin sat down on Real Sports on HBO and kind of did a segment on that. I know Coach Loxley over at Maryland has done some things in that regard. So we wanted to make sure that Coach Tucker got an opportunity to do that as well. And then we're continuing to map out the rest of the year. March, is going to be a really big focus on mentorship, career services, and end with our career combine. May is going to be the time for internships and job shadowing opportunities. June and July will be financial literacy and leadership development. August, we'll do public speaking and media training with the great Ben Flieger on here. It's going to put that together for us. And then September, October, November, since it's the season, will be mental conditioning, and we'll continue to use Game Plan to supplement what we do. So really busy time in terms of player development, but Coach Tucker buys into this, and not just buys into it. He is huge on doing things like that. When it came to the entrepreneurship program, for example, again, we found out about that on February 1st. When we met with the entrepreneurship program that next day, he asked him, he said, "How long has this program been in place here at Michigan State?" They said, "Oh, it's relatively new. It's about 6 years old." Coach Tucker said, 6 days old is new to me. 6 years, that's not new. 6 days old is new, and maybe that's pushing it. So why aren't we doing something with you all yet? And they said, "Well, we kind of tried to talk to the program before, and things fell on deaf ears or whatever." He said, "Well, we need to have this going." And he said, when can we have this going? I said, Coach, we can get this rolling next week if you want. He said, well, why didn't we do this yesterday? So that's the speed that Coach Tucker moves at. And I really appreciate that because that's the speed I like to move at also. And just my overarching plan is to make sure that our student athletes have a better experience at Michigan State than I did. And my experience was phenomenal. So I already know it's a challenge to make that happen, because if I could do this all over again, I'd pick Michigan State 11 out of 10 times to attend to be a student athlete. If I can make it even better than my experience, then that means I'm doing my job to the best of my ability. So with that, I'll kind of wrap up my spiel and open up for questions.
Appreciate it, Darren. Appreciate that overview. We have time for a few questions. We'll go to Lindsey Huddleston. Lindsey?
Hey, Darren, outstanding job as always. I'm just curious if there are any pros and cons to you being an alum, Spartan Dog in particular, meaning you can talk about the great things you're doing or your experience, but talk about, are you ever too close to the program? Are your experiences ever too emotionally tied to having played it that you have to step back a little bit, or does that all work together as one?
I think it all works together as one, just because that's how Michigan State is. We're really family oriented. We're big on tradition. We're big on culture. So I'm always looking for ways to improve, just like I think everyone else is here. And to have other Spartan Dogs in the house, to have Lorenzo Guest, to have Courtney Hawkins, to have Harlan Barnett, to have Kevin Vickerson here, and then to be able to use our former players as a resource, which Coach Tucker is big on. That just, again, it makes my job a lot easier, but it also makes it worthwhile. And I don't really view this as a job. Like, this is a dream opportunity for me. So I'm going to put my all into this because it's about the student athlete. I'm here for the student athlete. I'm not here for personal gain or anything like that. I'm here to make sure that the players on this team have the best experience possible, that they can grow to be, honorable and great young men, that they can grow to be great fathers and great husbands one day, that they can go out into society and make a difference and make an impact. So everything we do, it has meaning behind it. And again, I think that, I'm not really an emotional person anyway, so it's not that hard for me to take the emotions out of certain things. But of course, I do want to see us do well, because I do, love this university. I love this institution. I want to see us win. But beyond that, and again, when I'm talking to recruits, I say, whether you choose to come to Michigan State or not, I want to be a resource for you so that you have a great experience as a student athlete, because I'm here for the student athlete. There, of course, is the football side of things, and I want to win as many games as possible and hoist championship trophies. But at the end of the day, it's about the student athlete and making sure they have a great experience so they can go on into life, make an impact in society, and be successful.
Our next question is from Matt Wenzel with MLive.
Hey, Darien, when we talked to you last spring, you said you thought you were pretty sure your role would kind of evolve and change as it went around, and you highlighted some of those earlier. The overall focus seems to be the same as when we talked to you, almost a year ago. But I mean, how close or how far away from you have you been from what you've been doing over a year to what you thought coming in? Granted, you don't know what's going to come up next.
For sure. I think that the start of this year has definitely gotten me to the point where it's what I have been hoping to do. Again, last year was just unprecedented for everybody. So it also had some elements of what I was hoping to do and planning on doing, specifically when it came to, education on social justice, focusing on voting and things of that nature. It actually gave us an avenue to really implement that in without a lot of pushback. But this year, again, with implementing, partnerships with what we already have on campus, that's something that was always going to be big for me. We got to use who we got here. Michigan State is a huge campus. It's an excellent school. It's one of the top, schools in the world. We got to use what we have here on campus to enhance our program and also at the same time enhance what they're doing. So being able to take an entrepreneurship program that's top 15 already in the country, maybe partnering with us can boost them into the top 5, which we'd love to see. And of course, it also helps our players. So ultimately now, again, coming into this year, with the I guess I'd say, free reign that Coach Tucker gives me to bring forward ideas. It's really exactly as I've wanted it to be, because it's going to be ever growing. I touch every single aspect of the program, which is what I love the most about it. And Coach Tucker doesn't, he doesn't hamstring anybody. He doesn't say, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. He says, bring me new ideas, continue to push things forward, continue to advance things forward. So that's what I saw this job being. It was an opportunity for me to bring forward my ideas and for it to be ever changing. And it's definitely been that.
Just out of curiosity, with the NCAA giving everybody an extra year, you got those seniors that, they want to come back. It's got to be a two-way street. Have you had any conversations with guys individually about, whatever their circumstances may be, from playing time to injuries to what they want to do professionally, to be, well, is this, talk it out, is it in their best interest to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the one part that, of this job that kind of gets overlooked. And I guess I don't really highlight it as much as I should have, is just those one-on-one conversations that I do have with players. Haven't been there, haven't gone through, of course, 4.5 years in the program, gone to be able to be a professional athlete, weighing those options of how that process works. So I can be a resource in that regard as well. And a lot of these players, they're smart. They know that they're going to make the best decision for themselves. For the guys that left, early last year, they had to make the best decision for themselves. And we talked about it. We talked through pros and cons. And when they ultimately made their decision, it was like, okay, now we got to do everything in our power to get you drafted into the National Football League. And it's the same with the players that decide to come back. It's like, okay, how is this going to be worthwhile for you? What can we get you in? What can we get you experience-wise in, so that it enhances what you're doing on and off the field, so that you can, of course, get an opportunity to play in the NFL if you want that, but also so you can transition into your career. So if you're coming back for what would be, technically a 6 year or something like that, it's like, okay, you probably already have your undergrad, you're working through a master's, you may already have that. It's like, okay, now what is there for you to do? Is it an internship? Is it an opportunity to work? Is it getting you connected with certain people within the industry that you want to go into? Is it you mentoring current players? Is it you now starting a business now that we have this connection with the entrepreneurship program? It's what is a benefit to you in terms of coming back? And then in terms of playing time, I just tell them the same, give them the same advice that I heard during my time playing, is that you ultimately control that. You control the opportunity that you have to get on the field with how hard you work, how much you study film, and how much of a resource you are to our team. It's a very competitive sport. There's 120 guys, 120 guys ultimately on the team, 11 starters on O, 11 starters on D. I'd say maybe anywhere between 30 to 40 guys total play during a game. So it's very competitive to get on the field. Ultimately, you control that with your work ethic and how you approach things day to day. And if you're doing the extra things to get out there that maybe somebody else isn't doing, it'll work out for you.
Thanks, Darien.
Our next question will go to Stephen Brooks.
Hey, Darren. I wanted to ask you about the call with former players and just that dialogue. I mean, what's sort of your message to them as the program, still turning that page, kind of? And what are they curious about? Because I'm sure, not many of them have been around in this past year and everything. What sort of conversations are going on between the former player groups?
Absolutely. The first thing that they wanted to know is, do they have an opportunity to be a part of what we're doing? So whether that's being around or being involved or getting access, that's what former players want. And my message just stems from the head man. It stems from Coach Tucker, which is that it doesn't matter when you played here, what years you played here, whether you won a championship or didn't win a championship, whether you were a walk-on, whether you were a scholarship, whether you played it down or not, you are always welcome in our building, just not during COVID. So if it's not COVID and our building is not a fortress and it's not on lockdown, you can hit me up 15 minutes before you show up. Hey, Darien, I'm coming through. Just letting you know. Cool, perfect, no problem. Come on in, be around our team, be around our players. That's something that, quite frankly, they felt that they didn't have before. Whether past regimes did or didn't do that, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do things. It just is different. Coach Tucker is very open to that, taking place. So that's, once you tell them that, then you see their shoulders kind of relax, and now they're really more attentive to listen to what you got to say. But at the same time, it's got to be a two-way street. To me, being an alumni means now it's time for you to give back to the program. So whether that's signing up for this Iron Sharpens Iron initiative, whether that's sending in videos about being a Spartan dog, whether that's supporting our team, positively on social media, whether that's, donating with your wallet, or anything that we ask you to do or request, that's how you can help the program. But we had a lot of guys donate their time, donate their resources to help. Todd Anderson, a former fullback here, is also a registered sleep coach. He was our sleep coach for all year. Devin Salmon, who played defensive tackle and offensive line here, he customized his shoes, so he just painted some kicking cleats for us. Of course, Clinton Jones and Gene Washington donating their time. Everything Curtis Daniel did. We had 10 former players kind of pilot this mentorship program last year. So we have a lot of guys from different eras that are donating their time to benefit us. And other than that, the conversations are just awesome. I mean, they're excited to be a part of this. Again, they've never had an opportunity to be on a call like that before, to see each other. Some of these guys haven't seen each other in years, and you could just feel that energy. I had to hit the mute all button because for the first 15 minutes, it was just former players just talking to each other, just fired up to be around each other. And I was like, hey, we got an agenda here, but I promise once I'm done, which is what I did, I made somebody else to host, and I jumped off to go to a team meeting, and they stayed on for another hour with each other, just catching up. So that's the family we have as Spartan Dogs. And just to have them as a resource is really important.
If I could, one other thing real quick, since we got you, man. Want to ask you about Mike Tressel moving on. You know, I know he was your position coach, and I think in a conversation we had when you came back, he was a guy that sort of inspired you to go into coaching or just into football, you know, post playing. Just curious about what you guys talked about, you know, when you learned he was leaving, and maybe you know, what you said to him, I guess, about his impact on you and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Coach Stress has had a tremendous impact on everything I've done football wise, you know, from recruiting me out of DeMatha to obviously playing here, to now coming back. He was the first person to call me to congratulate me on getting the opportunity here. I'm definitely going to miss having him around. You know, we have that special relationship, as you should with your position coach, as you hope to with your position coach. And when he got this opportunity, I just told him I'm proud of him. You know, love him to death, love his family. You know, his wife is phenomenal, his kids are phenomenal, and I know he's going to go do great things at UC. So that's how this business works. It's always about getting an opportunity to either, you know, move up, if you want to call it that, or get an opportunity to spread your wings. And he's a tremendous coach. He did an awesome job last year transitioning from linebackers to safeties. You know, he's the epitome of a football coach. I mean, really any conversation you have with him is going to be about ball. Like, that's all we talk about is ball. And just to stop him in the hallway or have him come to my office and us reminisce on the days when I was playing, or go over defensive things or compare to what we're doing now. I love that. So I'm definitely gonna miss him, but I wish him the best. I'm gonna be watching all those games to see how he does for sure.
Thanks, Darien.
Our next question will go to Audrey Dahlgren.
Hey, Darien, with Clinton and Gene speaking to the team, how did that go in terms of how did it resonate with everybody? And did they know the story, you know, Duffy Doherty's story and the recruiting strategy that he had? And, you know, how many players knew that or didn't know?
So we tried to prep them for sure. We tried to give them as much information as possible. But really what I prefaced them with is it's really not going to hit you how important this conversation is that you're having, probably until you're out of here. And maybe even a few years down the road. I mean, I'm, you know, 6 years now removed. And the fact that I get an opportunity to talk to Gene Washington often, and his daughter Maya often, or the fact that, you know, Clinton Jones calls me every week now after setting that up. I mean, it's awesome for me. You know, for the players, they really appreciated the call for sure. They had a lot of great questions. They understand the importance of it. But, you know, it's young college kids. So they're probably like, yeah, this is awesome. This is cool. But as they get older, I think they're really going to understand how important it was to have these gentlemen here with us and to get an opportunity to experience what they're doing. Because it's you know, of course, the you know, the Underground Railroad of college football coming through Michigan State and the integration of college football, that's the most important piece. But these two were excellent football players. You know, they're top 10 draft picks in the NFL. They played the game at the highest level. They won championships to NFL, and they still know the game. So it wasn't just, you know, a couple guys coming on talking about the olden days. They were talking about scheme and ball. They watch every single game, and now you have them as a resource. They both asked me to pass their number along to everybody. They've already connected with some of our players. Like, again, these are things that just they weren't happening before. So just to get that opportunity, you know, eventually once Maya continues to, you know, get on the banks of the Red Cedar more heavily, you know, streamlined out there, we'll watch it as a team for sure when we get an opportunity to do that. I've seen it, I think, twice now. It's a great movie, of course. Again, just being a part of that and being a part of that history, it does resonate with our players. They get it. And then I think 5-10 years down the road, they're going to really, really get it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you.
Looks like we have one more question from Chris Starr.
Hey, Darren, you kind of made mention of the building being on lockdown, and I wanted to kind of ask about back in the spring and coming up here in the next couple weeks, how has the pro day experience changed? Because it's obviously a critical part and component for these guys in their future. How was it last spring without that? And how is it going to be different this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year not having it, was difficult for the guys that were looking for an opportunity. That was the most frustrating thing for me to see. And again, it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that it was with COVID, and it shut down a lot of things that benefit people. Whether it's pro day or whether it's people's businesses being shut down, furloughs happening, people getting laid off. It was just a tough, difficult time, tough, difficult year for a lot of people. And as we know, a lot of the borderline draft picks and guys that are going to be priority free agents, they make their money and they get their opportunity through pro day. What I can say though is that being able to have it this year because we got our protocols in place is going to be huge for our guys that are coming out this year and the guys from last year. Coach Tucker is going to allow the guys that didn't get an opportunity last year to participate in pro day to participate this year. So for the guys that stayed in shape, which all of them did, and I don't have an exact list of those who will be participating, but I would assume, the Josh Butlers, Tyreek Thompsons of the world, Brian Lewerke's, players like that didn't necessarily get an opportunity last year to land on an NFL team for a long time, mainly because they didn't get a pro day. They'll have an opportunity this year to compete. And again, that's just Coach Tucker being Coach Tucker. He recognizes that it was a missed opportunity for players last year. He means what he says when if you played here, whether you played for me or not, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you out. And this is going to be a great way to do that. Scott Aligo, our director of player personnel, is the one heading up that process with the NFL, with the scouts and with pro day. And as soon as he told me that, I was incredibly excited to hear that because it's going to give our guys an opportunity to participate. So again, what it's going to look like, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's going to be set up in a way that's COVID safe. I'm not sure what, media involvement will be in that regard. I just know that I'm excited for our guys to get an opportunity. I know how important pro day was for me. And I know, not without having it, I wouldn't have gotten any opportunity to be a professional athlete. So for these guys to get that opportunity is going to be really important for them. And I know they'll be ready for it.
How about just even without that over the course of the last year, how is that scouting changing? Have you tried to be a liaison maybe to some of those teams for guys to build that relationship when they don't necessarily have that on-field component to do that at these events?
For sure. So the big addition for us is Scott Aligo. He was a scout for 7 years in the NFL. He's now director of player personnel. He knows every single scout in the league, pretty much every GM, and he's got these guys on speed dial. So the way he's able to communicate with NFL personnel about our guys is something we've never had here before in terms of that process. And then how it's completely 180 from anything we've ever had here before in terms of how we are able to get our guys access to the NFL and just make sure the NFL knows about our players and gets good information on our players. It also, of course, is a benefit to have Coach Tucker, who's coached in the NFL for years, so he knows all these people as well. Just again, I'm a sponge when it comes to what Scott does in that regard. So I'm always trying to learn how he does things, how he looks at evaluations. He's been there, done that. His job for 7 years was relying on the decisions he made in terms of choosing which college athletes to take. So he takes that very serious. He's able to sit down with all our players one-on-one and explain exactly how the process is. And it's not just what he thinks it is, it's what he knows he is. And he's able to give good information in the NFL. So it's been a pleasure to work alongside him in that regard. You can't have a better resource than somebody like Scott to be able to do that. And just like everything's been virtual. So, normally the NFL scouts are able to come on campus and watch practice, things like that. We've just had to do things virtually, but everyone's had to adapt. And again, without having Scott here, I'm not sure what it would look like, but having him here, it's been tremendous, just the change that I've seen, just based on how we handle the whole NFL process.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
You too as well.
I think that's all the questions we have. So I really appreciate everybody joining today. Darien, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks,
All right. Sounds
Darien.
good. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.